Welcome to today's episode of the Seven Figure Journey podcast. I'm one of your hosts, David Gilliland. We have the privilege of having Jay Veal with us from Inc. Education. We're just excited to have him on. Welcome, Jay.
Hey, how's it going, y'all out there that are listening to today's podcast? I appreciate you having me on, Mr. Gilliland, and let's kind of get into things today. Calling in from Dallas, Fort Worth area, in the Aubrey, far north Dallas area, where we just, I guess in DFW, we just hit 8.2 million people in the area, so we're getting huge out here, but glad to be here today.
Well, we're just delighted to have you on. And Jay, I find what you're about as a business to be interesting. Why don't you just share with
Yeah.
everyone who you are, why you're doing this, and then, let's talk a little bit about the backstory, how you got started.
Yeah, so man, I'm originally from Northeast to LA in California. I have a family who was in the military, so I've been multiple different places. Was a freshman in high school at 12 years old and graduated early, so I was pretty young in school. And so once I kind of went through all those things and went to college and all that, went to the United States Naval Academy and then graduated with my master's from University of Texas in Arlington with information systems with a minor in math. I thought that I was going to go into the engineering space for quite a while. When I was a little kid, little tyke, right? I wanted to be in systems engineering. I wanted to be in biomedical engineering. I kept on kind of changing my thing. And so eventually I landed in tech, right? So when I graduated college, went into the tech space for a while, worked at Microsoft for some years, Baylor Healthcare IT, and telecommunications companies in the tech field. And then from there, I managed to get into education. Funny thing, I got for any listeners out there that are spiritual out there, whoever your being is, I got a word from the Lord that said you need to be in education when I was in the tech space, and I was like, what am I going to do with this? I just literally heard these words from Him, and I don't know what to do with that. And so they always say, when you hear a word from the Lord, you need to move swiftly. So that's what I did. And so I left the middle of 2015. I left the tech industry and went into education, went back to go teach at my alma mater, which is crazy. My first year teaching at Science Engineering Magnet Center, or Science and Engineering Magnet High School, part of Townview Magnet Center in Dallas. And my first year teaching, I ended up teaching a very unique class called Fast Track Mathematics, which is teaching freshmen 3 years of pre-AP math in 1 year. So if you can imagine a space where freshmen are learning geometry and pre-calculus all in 1 year, I taught that class my first year. And so after doing so, all my kids got 100% perfect scores on the state exam my first year teaching. So I figured I must be gifted at this particular thing, right? So I said, all right, God, I hear you. So I moved forward. Ended up doing another 3.5 years in teaching and education. So a total of 4.5 years in the classroom. And then I went into being an instructional coach. So I taught teachers for 3 years for mathematics, and then went to be a math interventionist working with SPED students, and then became an adjunct professor at a university for 4 years doing developmental mathematics, statistics, college pre-calculus, and also college algebra. So, and as a roundabout, probably spent about 13 years ish in the education space. And then in the middle of 2015, I started my education journey, in 2008. But I went into starting my business in the middle of 2015. So I noticed that there was a gap between what students of color were not getting inside the classroom for support or outside the classroom for support. So I managed to develop an approach and a holistic approach that's a 360 view of how education and tutoring is supposed to be delivered to students. And what that entailed was building a deep relationship between parents and students first, and then including different stakeholders in their learning processes. So parents, teachers, counselors, students, and coaches, if they're in sports, to make sure everybody's on one page academically and pedagogically. We mentor the students and provide back-end support. So utilizing that, we were able to get a 95% success rate of students getting A's and B's in 55 subjects. And now we have impacted, since that time in 15, about 11,000 students across the board reached that dynamic. We were the first Black and Brown owned education organization to make the Forbes list for what we've done for students in that population. And also we're an 18-time award-winning organization at this point. So I would say the dynamic of what we do is real niche in terms of how we approach education and tutoring. And then now we're trying to scale it to make things happen. In addition to that, I have a financial literacy and credit organization that I utilize or that I do with the Jay Veal brand, and have a nonprofit as well. So, man, it's been an interesting journey so far, and that's kind of like the background and backstory. Outside of the fact that I started knocking door to door my first year and trying to get into this business, and I spent a whole year doing that, doing sweat equity before I got any help. And then from there, we grew the team from 0 to 90 members nationwide between 6 cities.
That is an awesome story. I love the passion behind what you do and the impact,
Yeah.
right? Just amazing. And there's power in that to really ignite and pull something out of your team and get so much more. And you have tapped into that power as you've grown that business.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think that when you're looking at teaming, you talk about growing and scaling and making sure that you bring along individuals who they have the same vision as you or similar vision as you, but you got to have the right people on the right bus going the same direction at the same destination at the end of the day. And it's very important. One thing that I learned as a founder is that you can't do it all yourself. When you start a business and you start to go on that journey in entrepreneurship, you think, man, listen, I'm gung ho. I'm going to do everything by myself. I'm going to do marketing, sales. I'm going to do PR. I'm going to do everything. Right. And PR is a big thing. I ended up actually doing my own PR for my own organization and ended up getting featured in probably most of the top media outlets today. But I think that when you have a situation like that, if people are not on that same bus as you and on that same pathway as you, you can't get to the final destination as quickly and as much, if that makes sense. So having a team that does that is great, right?
Jade, I'm hearing that. I feel like you've learned some really practical ways of doing that in the trenches. Can you share maybe with us a nugget or two of here's how I did that? Right people on the bus go in the same direction, kind of thing. What's it look like?
Absolutely. Right. So another thing that I learned during the process is how to hire. Well, me and my COO and executive team, we learned kind of how to hire people a little bit better. One of the key things that I've talked about in the previous podcast was when we hire individuals, we don't just bring individuals. Sorry, that is my 3-year-old knocking at my door all of a sudden. So we don't just hire individuals from like the outside randomly, right? So if people normally hire from Indeed or Career Builder or whatever platform that may be, we don't do that. We do things differently. We follow recommendations from our executive team and our leadership team, and we get people's resumes. They analyze them, right? And from analyzing those particular,
Why don't you bring her in and introduce her real quick?
Let me get her. Sorry, guys. Let me get her.
And for listeners, you just need to know this is the life of the entrepreneur. And many of us did this to get some free time, right? A little bit of like, I want to be able to do the things I want to do. Well, Jay gets to do that and connect with and be around not just great business, but a great family. This is
her. This is her. I'm going to get her back in a second, but this is her. She often tries to get in my business. Like we're talking about business for real. But anyway, this is Gianna. Say hi.
Good to meet you, Gianna.
All right, guys.
Thanks for joining the podcast today, Gianna.
Let me get back to it. So, kind of going along that same pathway. What we ended up doing was instead of using like a platform or a Career Builder or an Indeed, we ended up having our executive team really recommend the people that fit the mode of the organization, the passion, right, the personality, and who we're going to serve. Are they able to deliver the content in a way that students can understand, in a way that they can achieve and follow what we're doing as an organization? And so by doing such, it has allowed us to hire mostly the right people. I won't say 100% because not everybody gets 100% nail on the head when they hire people all the time. And so, but most of the time when we do that, we look for certain individuals who fit that model, and we bring them in, and most of them stay with the organization for quite a while, because not only do they love the impact of what they're doing, but they're able to push out their expertise and make somebody else understand something so they can go out there and impact somebody else. So that's kind of how that works with us.
I love that. Yeah, we like to call it hiring to the vision, and that's the first two parts of that fit. Are you aligned with the passion? Do we see it just bubbling out of you? And
Right.
then the belonging. Do you fit with our core values and our way of seeing and approaching the world on that? And then the last part of that's the mission, which is, now, do you have the skills and the aptitude to really reach our target customers the way we need you to, right? And to hit
Exactly.
within your role to execute really effectively. So I love that
Absolutely.
you've discovered that, and that was a key to growth, and we see the same thing. Thanks so much for sharing some of those details.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Appreciate
So
that.
outside of your beautiful 3-year-old who probably keeps you up at night, uh,
Right.
what what other things what other things are you looking at and you're like, okay, now I'm at this place in my business, and these are some challenges or struggles I'm trying to work through that maybe we could work through together while we're on the call today.
You know what? While I was sitting here kind of thinking, two things. One is being able to now, being at a point or an inflection point, if you will, if you want to use mathematical terms, we're at an inflection point of wanting to scale in a different way. In order to do that, you can only go so far in education and or tutoring with the human capital business, right? So we want to try and transition from human capital businesses to how do we involve technology to be able to move in a direction where we can scale the business to where it can be not necessarily always one to one in a very limited mode of one to many, but how can we do one to many and reciprocate that multiple times, right? So I think right now we're at that point. I'm trying to build some ed tech, wanting to build some ed tech and get funding for that, so we can involve the different features that we need that's different in the market, scale the organization with, and go to market with. And now we can change education and tutoring in a way that nobody else has or nobody else can, the way that we're going to do it. So that's one thing that's keeping me up. I want to say this though. Another thing that's different when you're trying to move, and I hear this from many different CEOs and many different leaders across the country and across the world, is when you're trying to move from $1 million to a multi-million dollar to $1 billion organization, what is the common theme that people talk about? It is the circle of people you have around you and who you meet that have achieved the level of success you want to be in and have achieved the level of success that you need to look at 5 to 10 years down the road. If you're not surrounded by individuals on your team and outside of your team who can reach, help you get to the stars, sometimes those 5 people that they always say, the 5 people around you are going to be where you're going to be in life. If you don't have that, you may not be able to get to the next level that you want to get to because you don't have access.
Yeah.
So I want to say that's very important, for what we're talking about today is access and scaling with technology and being able to go to the next level in two different verticals: people and technology. If that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah, it does. I love that you have identified that it's the who, it's the who that are part of the solution rather than how am I
Right.
going to work my way there, right? Like,
Yes.
who is going to get me there? And how do I tap
Right.
into those, right? But
Right.
there's an interesting pull along the way too, because the people who've been with us, we still see potential in that.
Right.
So, how do we deal with that? Because a lot of people say, as you grow and scale, you pretty much have to swap out that leadership team for another one. That people can't grow
Yes.
with you. And yet, is that really saying I believe in their potential, or am I saying I believe people are just what they are?
So I like the point of that. Right. Two things. One is people are, they always say believe who believe who people are when you meet them or when you see them. Right. I believe in potential, but I also believe in people who, people are who they are and they say who they are. But here's the thing about that: people are who they are. but they grow to their potential through something in between that barrier. There's a gap. And what that gap is, somebody that's able to coach them to leadership to move them in the direction that they need to go. Why? Because they're lost or they don't know where they want to go. Prime example, like I have, my CEO, my now COO, Clint Machi, he started out in tutoring, right? Started out tutoring science because he's a science major, right? Master's in science, biology, and all that, right? So I think going from a tutor to a tutoring manager to a business manager, then going from a business manager to COO to where he is now. I mean, now he has his own organization, and he also works for a clinical research company. And so when you're going through those different verticals within the organization, you learn different things. He always says, "Man, he's like my younger brother, right?" It's funny. And so we learn so much from each other, from working with one another, getting to know how each person operates. They get to learn those things. They get to learn the goals that you want to reach and the KPIs and all the things that you're trying to do that make the organization run and the engine flow. So if the oil is leaking somewhere, he knows how to fix it, right? Or when the rotator, when the wheels are falling off the car, the nuts and the bolts, which is your team, are able to come back and fix it, and you're able to drive on the raceway again. So the point is, I think there's lessons in meeting people where they are and moving them where you want them to be through leadership and guidance and mentorship. And I think that's part of the problem and part of the solution that you just mentioned.
Yeah, I think you're really hitting on something well here. I've seen some others do some great things, and some things that have helped me along that path have been tapping into mentors. And I want to give some practical things, so then listeners can also be like, so what do I do, right? Like, what if I don't have these mentors yet? Couple practical things. Very few of us know how to use our board the way it was meant to be used. Very few seven-figure businesses actually have a board of directors or a board of advisors. Directors just means they have some voting rights. They actually have some
Right.
power. Advisors means they don't, but they're just as effective if you can fully engage them. And so,
Right.
so and you can have both. But the key is those are the ones I change out.
Now that is true, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
Those are the
Right.
ones I'm going to change out. They serve their space, they serve their time. They're not full time and all in, but they are my mentors. And so if I'm looking to move beyond, I begin knocking the doors. I'm sharing the vision. I find my mentors in the next space. They become my board of advisors for the next 3 years.
Right. And those people change through
That's right.
time because
I
of the
changed
vision
really
of your
rapidly.
organization.
Exactly. So that's a key spot. And then they have a job. They have a job to help, to mentor and coach
Right.
and give me guidance and some of my executive team to level them up. And so I can line up board members who were COOs of $50 million organizations in
Mhm.
our space or in our area or within our passion and pursuit that can really coach this one in the area that she really needs to step up, or in the area that he needs to step up over here. Right. So I use that board. That board's a powerful place to
Right.
do. The second one is my job changes, or Jay's job Jay's job changes in this one, right? You went
Right.
from, and the beauty is you're doing this. You feel a passion or a purpose much higher than Jay needs to make an extra.
Right.
Okay,
That's
you
true.
you got a call, or you have a pull that is bigger than this earth can contain for you. You're going to pull that direction. You're going to keep going. You've got the passion. You've got the pursuit. You've learned the discipline. I mean, you were even your own PR person. You cranked
Mhm.
through. You learned these, but you've learned to hand some things off to run a fantastic, a world changing education. It's really like augment everyone else's education. Plug us in. We're going to fix whatever's there for anyone, right? Like you are the super
Right.
juice, the power that helps things really go. Well, you figure out how to do that.
Right.
Now you've got to shift and become a all I am is a builder of leaders. And so it's a new
Yep.
craft, right? You're already
Yeah.
probably feeling, you're like, you're right. It's taken more and more of my day is to build leadership in others and to stop thinking about how I run. I set vision, and then I build leaders and others, and they're the ones who drive, and they're the ones who help me set the vision, right? I'm teaching them how to do everything I've done before, and to spend more and more time. And that may look like doing cycles in the business,
Right.
working on this thing, but with someone alongside, or fixing it through them with you just coaching or being there to
Right.
frame
And
questions, right?
right. And that's where you change from being a leader that drives vision to being a transformational leader at that point.
That's
Right.
exactly
So
right.
you're investing yourself into building the other people that surround the organization. Mm-hmm.
That's right, because you hit a spot where you learned to shift gears. And research done back in like the 80s, well, it was finally published in like the 80s, if I remember right, by Gene Dalton and Paul Thompson. They did this work around novations. They talked about different stages of growth and how you contribute. You know, there's learners in your organization, there's those doers, then there's leaders, those who contribute through others, right? They
Mm-hmm.
actually, that's how they add value, is through other people. And then
Right.
there's leader of leaders. These are transformational. These are direction
Mm-hmm.
setters. They champion it through the end. These
Right.
people speak less, ask better questions. They listen more, right? These people, they're
Mm-hmm.
doing things that are helping leaders. Well, first, individual contributors are sponsoring them to become better leaders. And then they're helping leaders learn to really think strategically, think longer term, drive, build a vision. And so each department, each group starts stepping up that way. And so your
Mm-hmm.
job becomes one of building great leaders all around you while championing this vision with them and getting them to do the same through to the end. And being the one that's
Yep.
finding those board members that are a step and a half ahead of you that come on board and help to mentor your team and accelerate their growth.
And
I
that's the
believe in
hardest
them as,
part.
yeah. Yeah, go ahead.
I'll say, and I think that's the hardest part is being able to find out where that juxtaposition of championing your team to become those kind of leaders where you don't necessarily have to come after them, but they come back and report to you things that are happening and saying, hey, these are where your blind spots are. Let's take these blind spots and remove them so we're able to see the road clearly. And I think that when you're a transformational leader and you transition into that, your job, like you said, is less now about really growing the revenue of the company, but more growing the leaders who are within the company who then take care of the revenue along the pathway that you're riding on.
You nailed it. That's the shift.
Yeah.
One of the things I've found that's helpful for those people who are building the leaders to lead the business is to get a framework in their head of what does a great leader look like. And I don't mean what's their personality type stuff. They
Right.
have to be aligned with your vision. They've got your core values lined. That's great. And that's absolutely essential. But what's the work of a visionary leader that can, that each person can learn? What's the craft? We put together a little model. Let me just share a couple pieces. What I love is while you and I have talked both on this
Mhm.
call and previous, right before we got on, I
Right.
was like, oh, he already sees some of them. But here's how we laid out. There's a set the vision, which has to do with articulating it, making a clear plan with co-creating that with your team, the clear plan, always building them, right? So articulate the vision with them, create the plan with them, and then champion that vision through to the end. So a
Mhm.
leader has a job to articulate, build a plan, and champion
Mhm.
it through to completion. That's one piece. Next
Mhm.
piece was build the team, right? You have to
Mhm.
realize that the way that a leader succeeds is by getting the team to get there, getting the
Mhm.
team, lifting them, because the leverage is enormous through a whole team.
Mhm.
There's nothing they can't overcome and create and do, while a solo person will bog down and burn out. And so
Right.
that's really key, is building that team, hire, leading, fire to the vision, being really clear about, all of the pieces that take to really run and tap into that discretionary effort of that team. So they're getting the vision, you're building them, you're developing them every single day. And then last one is don't run out of cash. Well, you're
Right.
talking about building this new tech thing. That's what you said to me. You're like, I got to build this team and I have to figure out how to fund it. That's what an owner thinks about. We need every leader to think that way. And some of them, it's not how to fund it, it's just delivering the results in their space that ensures we have the cash to succeed. that ensures that we're delivering on the promises we've made, right? And so that
Right.
culture of accountability where we don't have to hold them accountable, they would never let down their team. And we
Right.
just need to create the time and space in that environment that they can come and report and they can get the help they need. They're so driven to achieve it because they're that committed to the purpose and to their team. So that set the vision, build the team, deliver results while caring deeply. There's a way to lead through care that transforms. This is what gets people to believe that there's something more because they see someone believes in
Yeah.
them.
And
This is
that's
what
that
gets people.
emotional,
Yeah,
and
they really.
that's an emotional intelligence part that you have to be. 'Cause I've had to, over the course of my time and journey as a founder, I've had to revisit some of those things to make sure that while you're on that journey, you can't forget to, care about everyone and care about the people that you lead, because you can't be a leader. When I was in the Navy, you can't, in the military, you can't lead until you understand how to follow. But while you're also following and leading, you have to put some sort of care in there, because you got to care for your people. At the end of the day, like when we first made, our first $1 million, I know I took the team out, the leadership team out to California, and we celebrated and did a lot of things. For it was my first time feeling really good as a founder, being able to do that for my team. But I
Yeah.
was able to do that because I cared about the space that we were in, and not the fact that we made an achievement, but it was something that we could do together, that we collaborated on, and we made something happen that changed the world as we were walking. And
Yeah,
that's
I love
important.
that. Like you really embrace that centerpiece that touches all of it. Setting the vision, building the team, delivering results, all has to be done through care. And
Yeah.
when it is, we can achieve some amazing results with our team. Um, I mean, we're coming to the end of that time, Jay.
Right, right.
But yeah, as you're looking to build the team, build the leaders that you want, now you can take the framework and say, for this leader, where is he needing a little bit of extra help? And I can be specific. Oh, it's
Right.
doing this part of it. Where does she need a little bit of help? How can I help her build her own plan and progress towards that and getting clear? But that new craft of building leaders is exciting stuff, right? It just is. And you can build
Absolutely.
anything as you start to do that. Jay,
Yes, sir.
it's been a privilege. How do people contact you, or how would they access your genius right now if they needed to work with you, or hire your people to help their kids?
Absolutely. Yeah. So you can find us on, obviously on the web, right? www.inkeducation. We have an Instagram. My Instagram is actually at the top tutor. Also under Ink Education, or the Jay Veal brand. We're on Facebook as well under It's Not Complicated Education, which is what Ink stands for. And of course, email, j.veal, the letter j.veal, VEAL at inkeducationllc.com. Or, hey, you guys want to reach out, definitely just, connect with us through the website, as well. So we're everywhere. I'm also on LinkedIn, the big one, right? Jay Veal, under LinkedIn as well. We'd love to help out anybody that does need help with kids, or if there's any kind of things in business that you guys want to connect on. Feel free to reach out. We can connect and collaborate.
Thanks, Jay. That wraps up today's episode of the Seven Figure Journey podcast, where we explore the ins and outs of the seven figure journey. Jay, thank you for being a guest on our show today. We loved having you on the show. For all of you listening in, I hope that you will share, do all the things that make this episode more available to all those other seven figure business owners out there. Keep striving, keep learning, keep caring, and keep pushing towards your goals. Until next time.